Hello, welcome to week 2. This is Sally again. This week we're really getting into it. Last week it might not have felt like it, but I was gently easing you into what you needed to do, and I made sure I opened this week a little bit early so you could get started. This is about the pace it's going to go this week too. This is a full 9 hours that you're going to be doing this week. You have 2 forums this week, and you have synthesis paragraphs. So I want to talk to you about all of them. First up, here's our 2 forums. Class is from the book. It says page 61. That's where you look in the book. It's not a long read. As a matter of fact, it's quite a short read. And it's casual. In a way, it'll remind you of Samuelson. It's a very casual sort of discussion sort of essay. So it's very easy to read. It'll probably only take you 10-20 minutes to read this. So if you read it twice, that's still 40 minutes. It's still under an hour. And you'll want to spend at least 2 hours doing your forum for this. Hooks is a longer read. She has more vocabulary for you to look up. She is going to make you think and question some things, I hope. Again, you can read her in under a half hour the first time through, most likely. And so it'll probably only be an hour's worth of reading, hour 10 at most. But, so 2.5 hours total for this one. That means the rest of your time, at least 4 hours of your time, 5 hours of your time, somewhere between 4 and 5, is going to be spent on these synthesis paragraphs. So, reminders on your forums. First up, as you read, I guess it's before the forums. As you read, it's good to be taking notes. I stuck up here, let's see, I stuck up here a reading log template if you wanted to use it. You could click on it. I'll slide it down so you can see it. You can make your own. I showed you last time. You can open any Google Doc and make your own list of people you've read and what their ideas were. But I'm trying to make it easy for you. So if you want to, you could click on this, go over to File, make a copy. You don't have to have access to mine. Make a copy. Say OK, and then it's yours. It's in your Drive from then on. You know what Drive is, right? Up here, there's a whole lot of words across the top, and Drive is one of them. That's where your Google Docs will be saved. As long as you have internet, you have Drive. Well, for our school. Okay, now back to our class. I'm not collecting these ever. I'm just suggesting. Many of you say you're hands-on learners. This is hands-on for our class. This is taking notes and keeping track of them. And I mentioned in some forums that I responded to, every article we read is going to have a main point of thesis. You should be able to try to find its thesis. However, it's going to raise a lot of great ideas. If you read each other's forums, you'll notice you don't all zero in on the same thing that's interesting to you or to talk about as examples. So each thing is going to raise 7, 8, 10 ideas. Now our goal later on is to be able to connect ideas, and you'll forget which ones came from where, or at least most people forget which ones come from where. So if you do this, it'll help you out. I'm just trying to help. Okay, so these forums, I got some notes over here on it. First thing I want to tell you, when you do a forum, so I have to click here. Remember, I always have to click here. I'm no longer saying click here, but you know that you have to respond to mine. You click on the link there, and then you have to read my suggestions and what you do. When you go to reply to me, you need to change this subject line. You need to change it. One of the classes, about 50% of people are remembering. In the other class, a third are remembering. The reason you have to change this, besides it's aesthetically pleasing, is that when there's a whole list of these, when you're looking at a pile of them, and the beginning of each one is identical, and the only thing different is the end names, It's very hard to remember which ones you've read, which ones you haven't. It's very hard to get a feel for them, to go back to them to remember them. Change that. Make it yours. It doesn't have to be original. Some of you go with it's your name and the thing. That's fine. Hey, I don't care. But do something that makes it your own. Please. Please, please, please. Okay. So I've stressed that. I'd also stress that you need to have at least 3 paragraphs. I'm going to remind you down here, originally, like for the first 4 of these, but it's always part of the grading. So even when I stop reminding you that it has to be 3 or more paragraphs, it still has to be 3 or more paragraphs. And these first ones, I want you to include at least 1 quote. The reason is I'm going to be reminding you to use quotation marks and page numbers when you need to. I'm going to start talking about I'm going to start talking to you about signal phrases and such. And I want you to have practice at these. And so this is free practice for your papers. And then it reminds you that you have to have 7 total at the end. Meaning you're going to reply to other people, you're going to reply back to the people that reply to you. So far, less than half the people that I've replied to have replied back. And that's not abnormal. It does suggest to me that you're not reading. So I hope you do. I think it'll help you. But at the end of the semester, I open these up and I see how many posts you have. And I'm going to count them. I actually have one over here on my thing. I have this little checklist thing. I don't know how well you can see it. That I go through when I grade. And so, yeah. I'm going to be looking. All right. You're going to change the subject line. 3+ paragraphs. You're going to make sure you have 7 total. Now, the tricky part. When you reply to somebody else's, I'm going to go back here. Sorry, you always have to wait a little bit. When you reply to somebody else's, make sure that you're saying something. Ooh, look at this. Isn't this beautiful? Make sure that you're saying something or asking something that will make them think more. I tried to give an example in here, and so I think my title is like, "An example." Let's see. There's a list of them. It's really hard to see them all, isn't it? Woo! Do you see how I have mine lined up, by the way? Yes? Up here in the top, I use display replies in threaded form. That way I know how they all link to each other, and it makes it so much nicer for me. I love that you problematize audience here. That might not be a sample of what to do. I swear I have one that says end sample. Using source use, pushing again for you to use reading journal log. I'm not original on what I put here, but I try to. Here's one. Just some personalized advice and a question. Kelsey's like, why did you click on mine? So on my first feedback to people, I tried to include an example of some of the things that you could do to push your reader or push your classmates to do even more. So on this one I say, now some questions to model the need to help people think more deeply. What do you think about his point about divergent thinking? Is that part of problematizing? If yes, how? If not, what function did it serve? Bigger thinking. Do you think school helps divergent thinking? This is about Robinson. So my point here is, when you reply to people, step 2, come up with questions. Go ahead and disagree with people. I modeled that in some of my feedback too. I said, okay, I think I disagree with you. I think when I read this, I interpret it this way. Now when I do that, it's not because I want you to suddenly think my way. It's because I want you to consider how other people might see it too. So you can hopefully you read lots of other people's posts, but I want you to realize how people interpret things is differently, right? And I need you to look at different interpretations and question your own interpretations and to be able to move beyond where you started there. So, 3 paragraphs, change the subject line, make sure you quote, 7 total, and when you do step 2s, when you reply, your goal is always to try to help your classmates learn too, so push them. It's okay to disagree. Yay! Gently, don't be rude. And definitely ask them some questions, because it's not enough just to have 7 one-word things. It's not enough to just have some words in a row. They have to show thinking. So help them get credit for showing thinking. Okay, so that's that part. Now, big important part. Synthesis paragraphs. This is new. The synthesis paragraphs is practice for our later papers. So you're going to pick some idea that was raised by anybody we've read so far. Hooks, Class, Robinson, Samuelson. By all means, please read Delpit. The sooner the better. Or you can look ahead and read some of the other people. But you want to pick an idea that they came up with. So, how hard it is to learn a new language. It's a challenge to learn a new language. How language changes you. How different languages can cause misunderstandings. How language can create unity. How language can create barriers and distance. Come up with an idea that they raise. And start with that idea, and then go back through at least 2 sources and find quotes about that idea. That's how I would start. You have to start with an idea about that is in these. Back to your reading log. I just mentioned that there's up to 10 ideas per source. So come up with that list of ideas. Find one that at least 2 sources touch on and create these paragraphs. Now when you do, I have lots of resources here. Please look at this synthesis explained by another author, and then this crazy, colorful, stereotypical synthesis paragraph. Hey, ultimately I don't want you to be writing to the form. I don't want you to be writing formulaic sentences or paragraphs. But I need you to know what the formula is before you step away from it. So look at this. Look at the parts that are required of that paragraph. You need to open with the idea, not a source. That's a big deal. You need to pick out the quotes you're going to have, because there has to be 2 quotes in the same paragraph. Before you quote somebody the first time, you have to introduce the source, have their name, their credentials, what they write about, and how it relates to your idea. And then you can quote them. You transition to the second one. I know you can look at it yourself. But I need you to see that all of these parts need to be in your paragraph. And there's an example of it, color coordinated, right underneath it, that shows you how all those parts work together in the paragraph. Notice how long that paragraph is? So this is a sample. Some of you said you really like samples. Oh, sorry, this is the colorful one we just looked at. This is a student sample using sources that you've already saw. So you can see how this really looks. This is due by next Saturday, January 20th at 11 p.m. You can send me drafts ahead of time. You can send the WRC drafts ahead of time. This is going to be a little bit of a challenge. I know it is. You're going to be stretching on this one. That's why I said you have 4 to 5 hours to work on this. From here on, there's going to be several weeks where we have 2 forums, and we have these synthesis paragraphs, and the synthesis paragraphs will get easier. But this time, please don't shortcut. Check out all these things. Use them to help you write this paragraph. Send me questions. Yay, some of you already are. I mean, I love it. People are texting, people are emailing. More. I want more. And I look forward to seeing these. Talk to you soon.